Hello there, this is Raul Handa. I'm the founder and the CEO of the Fortuna Group and your host of the FFTB show. And you may be wondering, why am I smiling so much today? Because I have the honor and the privilege today, ladies and gentlemen, to interview one of my most favorite people in the world. And she is God-sent soul. She is someone that I look forward to. She was my inspiration to quit smoking. She was my inspiration to quit sugar, and I'll tell you more why. But before that, she is a doctor, MPH, PhD, super intelligent, a trailblazing healthcare educator, an entrepreneur, famously known as the original radio psychic. With over 40 years of experience, she uniquely combines public health knowledge and metaphysical insights, reaching millions through her acclaimed radio show and social media. She's a best-selling author, a keynote speaker. She champions holistic wellness and alternative health, inspiring others by blending science with spirituality. She's the embodiment of health, one of the most beautiful women I've ever met and known. She recently won Business Women of the Year, Entertainment and Media from the United States of America at the 2024 Global Edition of the Fortuna Global Excellence Awards. She was a keynote speaker and a guest of honor at the Business Leaders and the Health and Wellness Leaders Edition of the 2024 Global Fortuna Global Excellence Awards. She is a very successful entrepreneur, has an amazing brand called Wicks of Wisdom, and she is 70 years young. I repeat that, 70 years young. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the one and only and the most favorite person in the world to me, Dr. Linda Salvin. Hello, Dr. Salvin.
Hello, Raul. It's so good to see you and be here. I'm so thrilled.
Welcome to Dubai.
I love it here. I feel comfortable. It's beautiful. It was never really on my bucket list, but I don't want to leave.
I'm sure. So you've been here a while.
I've been here almost a week.
You sat on the camel.
I sat on the camel for a half an hour. Even my driver said they're usually 10 minutes. I went 30.
Right, you connected with the camel. We'll talk a little bit about connections.
Yeah, the camel. Sultan.
He
was smiling.
He was smiling. I saw the picture. Awesome. It's been one of the best things that's happened to me this year is knowing you, Dr. Salvin.
Thank you.
And for me, it's been so heartwarming. You were my motivation. Guys, Dr. Salvin quit smoking 20 years ago.
23 years ago.
23 years ago, and she was a chain smoker like me.
I was.
And I told her, I remember I spoke to her and I said, Dr. Salvin, I'm trying to quit smoking. And I'm reducing. And she said, Raul, don't fool yourself. There is no reducing. You just wake up one day and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. And that stuck with me. And on the 19th of October, 2024, I was at a club, at a lounge with a couple of people. I had a drink. I grabbed a cigarette, went to smoke. I smoked like a couple of drags. And then I had difficulty catching my breath. And that's when the person who came into my mind was Dr. Linda Salvin, nobody else. And I remembered what she said, that you need to have the courage to do this. And I thought, if she could do it,
yeah,
and she could stick onto it for 23 years, that means she quit at the age of 47.
Yes.
I can do it, and I'm a firm believer of practicing what you preach, and I did. So thank you so much,
You're so welcome.
Dr. Linda Salvin, for inspiring me and so many other people. And I'm sure that today's episode, when people watch it, they're going to be moved and inspired and motivated to quit smoking, to be a better version of themselves, and obviously to get, your wisdom. So I'm going to start. Obviously, I have a long list of questions, but I want to know the Linda Salvin before she became Dr. Linda Salvin. I want to know what happened. I know, but obviously
they don't know.
They don't know.
Right.
So let's talk about that.
Well, first of all, it's quite an introduction, and thank you. And I'm really blessed, and I'm thrilled to know that I inspired you to help, because I remember that conversation on Zoom and starting to talk about drinking like distilled water, get the toxicity out of your blood, or it's the hand to mouth for the first 8 days, and then you got to fill up with oxygen because your lungs are used to having that. That inhalation, and to fill up with smoke, and then you fill up with food. But what they don't teach you, which I told you, They don't tell you that the filters on cigarettes are cured in sugar, which causes more of a sugar addiction, which is why we're always eating after we stop smoking, because they've got it all planned. The industries know how to keep us ill. I lack love. When we are doing better with love, life openly and vigorously expressed, we're more in balance with the universe. We don't need to injure ourselves when we want self-worth and self-esteem. I grew up in Los Angeles, born and raised. I was the chubby little kid. I was put on diet pills at 13, which is what they did in the 60s. Yes, I'm 70 years old. But everything's evolved through time. So I had a drug addiction because that's how I grew up. But I started smoking at 14, I believe. But I quit smoking at one point, and then I was in a plane crash, which I'll mention in a moment. And somebody offered me a cigarette on the field, and I said, okay. And I started smoking again. You take one or two drugs, and you're starting the addiction all over again because it's so powerful. It's what it does with the brain. It's not the tobacco. It's the strychnine and the nicotine and all the other chemicals, and then the sugars, and it's wrapped up in there, besides the hand and mouth. But the fact that you stopped, it's like I said, you just stop and don't go back. And I was 47 when I finally stopped. My niece had come by and said to my sister at the time, I think she was 5, and she said, how come Auntie Linda's skin smells like her house? That was it.
Oh.
That was it. Little snob, right? But I thought she made sense at the age of 5. It's like, okay, one more time. It was like, why? So the self-deprivation versus the self-worth versus the self-destruction. And my journey has been about improvement, human potential, and health, because I grew up unhealthy. Not that my parents, I had the best care, but they were always testing for allergies or whatnot, because I was born an allergic baby. I couldn't even hold down milk the day I was born.
Right.
So it's always been a struggle. But as I got older, I got into healthcare in college, and I started understanding things, and I started looking at wanting to improve things. And when I was in college in the 70s, the holistic movement, the natural movement, organic, was just starting to tip. So it was new, and even my advisor at school said, no, you're not going that direction, you're going this way. But I found my direction later as to what was going to work for me.
Because you started with public health.
I started with public health. I got the bachelor's in health from San Francisco State, went on to the University of Michigan, got an MPH in epidemiology, which is the big term today from the pandemic.
It is.
Right? So I was ahead of my time. And then what happened is I was in a plane crash 4 years out of grad school on company business.
And how old were you?
27.
27. So
it's 43 years ago.
And you were on company business.
I was on company business. I was out of town with my partner. We were doing ethylene oxide analysis, which is to make sure the chemicals weren't exposing the employees, because we insured the hospitals. So somebody invalidated our sampling. We went back to the airport, and while I'm same position, I'm sitting with you across this way. Over here would have been the terminal, the plane sitting there, and I said, doesn't it look like it could crack there? And he didn't see what I saw, but I saw an exhauster, a fuelage exhaust settlement at the body of the plane, and I thought it was going to crack.
And you were at LAX at that time?
No, this was John Wayne Airport in Orange County, just south of LA. Okay. So we were.
So you told your partner that
I said
something's off. You looked at the plane and you said, this might crack.
Yeah, but he thought I was tired.
Okay. But did it just come to you?
Yeah, I just stared out. We're having coffee. He had pie. I was just, you're bored and you're looking out, and there's a plane in the not the hangar, but just I looked and I had a vision. I'd never had a vision before. Okay. But an hour and a half later, we crash landed to avoid collision with another plane taking off on the same runway. So statistically, you can't do this without 1,000,000,000 to 1 crashing.
Correct.
Okay. So we crash landed. The landing gear came off, an engine fell off, and the plane cracked in half. I came down the emergency ramp. I had an out-of-body experience, but this is pre-internet, so I couldn't Google what had happened to me. This is 1981. Internet hit 1996.
Okay, so I want you to wait. So you sat in the plane.
Well, they gave us 90 seconds.
No, the plane took off.
Yeah.
And then whatever happened.
Yeah, we went for an hour.
Yeah, the plane crash landed. It cracked in half.
Upon landing.
Yeah, upon landing. You had an out-of-body experience,
Coming
which
down
meant
the ramp.
that for a moment you were not breathing.
No, I was breathing, but
you were not like.
I wasn't me. No.
It wasn't you.
No,
yeah.
something happened.
Something happened. So. They say when something like this happens, you have your entire life flash in front of you.
It did. Before I got off the plane, that's a good point, Raul, because while we were crashing,
Yeah.
this is what I think you're asking.
Yes.
My partner was on my left. A stranger was on the right. I was in the middle seat, second row.
Right.
Boeing 737, 109 people.
Wow.
And first you're on the pavement. Then it was bum, 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 bum.
Okay.
Then we're on the grass.
Okay.
And I thought, oh my God, we're going to die.
Okay.
And everything from maybe nursery school.
Right. Yeah.
All the way up to where I had been at the airport in San Jose at age 27. Flashed like a piece of film, only it was cut going.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's true.
Life review takes place.
Okay. So before we move on to the out-of-body experience, what was going on in your mind? Were you screaming? Were you shouting? Were you crying? Were you howling?
I just gasped.
Okay.
And I held on, saying, "We're going to die."
That's it.
That's all I kept saying is, "We're going to die," because the throttle, the change of the noise, the speed, or whatever you want to call it, the torque, the movement, the plane, it wasn't slowing down. You didn't hear that.
Right.
You just went, and then the because you don't know when the landing gear is stripped. That's pretty loud. When an engine falls off, this is not Disneyland or
obviously
Dollywood or Pollywood or whatever. You know, this is real stuff.
So didn't you have anything like, oh shit, I should have hugged my dad one last time?
None of that came.
No, I should have said I love you to the guy I have a crush on. No, nothing.
None of that. It was just more of like where I was in life, and oh my God, we're gonna die. I didn't get to my parents. I saw friends. I saw my parents. I saw my sisters. I saw growing up. I flashed through high school and college to get to that moment. But it wasn't until I was in the hospital that they got my parents on the phone.
Okay, so we'll get to that. Now, so that happened. The emergency exit opened, obviously, when the plane stopped.
And my partner had to kick open the door because it was the pressure.
Right.
And then the stewardess, they're not supposed to panic to give passengers panic. They're trained.
Absolutely.
But ours panicked because she ran down the aisle and set everybody off before it blows. We had 90 seconds before we would have exploded.
Before the plane would have blown up. Oh my goodness.
90 seconds with 100 to get people
109 people in there.
That's a lot.
A lot of people in the very last time. Okay, so your partner kicked open the door.
I got to the door. And I said, "Where are the stairs?"
Yeah.
I didn't know what
just
happened.
Yeah.
And so she tapped me on the shoulder and I went down the slide.
Okay.
But during that slide,
but I'm sure you didn't know what was happening at that point.
It's too much.
It was too much going on. Right. Okay. Then?
Coming down, this loud whoosh whoosh sound took place, and I heard a voice say, "Don't do this, June." I was given a message, which I don't repeat yet. And I hit my knees. I was wearing a winter white suit, and I just ran on the grass. I didn't know what was happening. I ran around. Next thing I know, I stopped. And I was facing, you kind of know LA, the 405 freeway is at the end of the grass. And then I learned, and I panned, and there was the paramedics. I saw the beacons, and I thought, what's going on here? And then I looked over, here's the terminal, and I kept turning. And next thing I know, I'm over here. I thought, there's the plane cracked in half on its belly on fire. And I said, oh my God, I just survived a plane crash.
Oh my goodness.
But I was 50 feet out of my body on the left, but I stood 5'8" on the right as I am. And that sensation lasted 4 months, not a day.
4 months?
4 months I was out of my body, and it took a psychic to tell me I was a walk-in. I said, what's a walk-in? It's this whole story. About a month later, I went to visit somebody because neurologist, psychiatrist.
They couldn't figure out what was going on with you.
They said, you're not split in half. Somebody got me, the guy that offered me the cigarette, because I was out in the middle of the field by myself. I didn't know what to do. I was shocked.
Right.
So he walked me to the paramedics, and they said, what's wrong? I said, my back, my neck, my knees, and I'm split in half. Gurney! As soon as I said split in half, they said, you're not split in half. I am out. Something.
And you constantly felt
I'm split in half.
That you felt that you were split in half. Wow.
And it took 4 months to start to integrate.
Right.
But 6 years of my life to start to feel whole again and have a purpose, or to figure out why I was even here. Remember, I was 27 in my 30s. I had 2 more after that, 2 more accidents. I got hit by a fire truck. Then I had I totaled a car and had the white light. And the white light, literally, you might get chills, went through my head into the top of my Camaro at the time. And this loud voice said, you can come with us now or stay and do. And I was given the message again. And when the paramedics got me out of my car, I broadsided a Pinto on a rainy night. Woman broke her hip. I said, they want me off the planet. They want me off the planet, because I knew I was being contacted or seeing the other side, but no one to talk to.
Right.
Years later, of course, as changes took place, I look back now, it was like an initiation, a spiritual initiation. And Nice Jewish girls in the Valley don't talk like that. We don't have out-of-body experiences.
I know. I know.
A different world. It wasn't academic.
Yeah.
It wasn't something in Hollywood. It wasn't something at the dentist. You just don't talk like, even my sister, my parents, nobody understood.
Right.
But I kept saying, I'm hearing voices.
My goodness.
And they said, what kind of voices? My sister especially, what kind of voices? Then she'd find little notes about, I'm hearing voices as if you're schizophrenic.
So how were these voices? Were they clear? Were they whispering?
Whispers.
Yeah, there were whispers in your ear.
But it's not the same as your consciousness.
Right.
Which is what most people think, I'm a psychic, I'm a this. I said, no, you're not.
Yeah.
It's not intuition.
Yeah, it's not intuition, right.
It's a different
It's
voice.
a different thing.
It's not your mom, it's not your dad, it's not your spouse, it's not your teacher. We all get a committee.
Right. Okay.
This was still, I'm getting chills, this confirmation of spirit. Something above entered me. When I was on radio, for the beginning, I would always talk about I was like a bumper car at the pier, and I had this little metal thing driving me around. Here goes Linda. Here goes Linda. Like they're guiding me. I had no control, right? But I had to learn a new language. I was given spiritual words, wisdom that came through me. I didn't know before. I didn't learn at school. I became a vessel or a teacher or a conduit. I don't like guru, but I was given a gift.
So 27 to 30.
3 more accidents.
Two more accidents. The first one was
the plane crash.
Then you were hit by a fire
truck on my way to UCLA for a job interview.
And then again. And you had done your bachelor's in public health.
And my master's.
And an MPH in epidemiology. At that time. And that's a long, long time ago, Dr. Salvin. You were hardcore into science. You were the person who could not have believed in all of this.
Correct.
But you had these experiences now. So at 30, when you literally were saved thrice. Three times. You started hearing these voices. How was the acceptance? Where did the acceptance come from? That this is my calling.
12 years later.
12 years later, yeah, exactly.
I rejected it.
Mm-hmm. You kept pushing it away.
I pushed it away. I was embarrassed. I was scared,
Exactly.
and there was nobody to talk to.
Correct.
If you go to UCLA shrinks, nobody was aware on this level back then. I couldn't find
someone who
quote,
could tell you, who could guide you,
No,
how
not
did that
back
happen?
then.
How did that happen?
I got up every day. There were days I became agoraphobic after the fire truck.
Mm-hmm.
The captain of the truck, I think this is funny, got out of the truck after he realized that their truck had damaged the front end of my car, and he said, "You okay, ma'am?" And I start laughing and crying. I said, "Oh yeah, sure. Last time in a plane crash, and I'm getting hit by a fire truck." I made a joke, but I had arm, elbow, neck injury from the impact because, as you know, when you watch your body,
you become stiff. You're holding the steering wheel really tight.
Your body reacts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I still have problems today, walking, carrying luggage, whatever.
Right.
I'm never the same.
Obviously.
I keep going.
Obviously.
But back then, I didn't know what was wrong. I went home and I hibernated. I got a doctor. I went back to the attorney. I said, "What do I do now?" The legal stuff, but the emotion, the spiritual, the intellectual, and then the guilt. And then I felt ashamed because all my friends seemed to be building their careers, getting married, having kids, and I'm going through this spiritual stuff. And nobody would understand.
That's why you kept pushing it for 12 years.
Because I wanted to fit in or I wanted to belong.
Obviously.
I didn't. And I got rejected. I broke up with boyfriends, or I rejected probably the man of my dreams for marriage because I was too messed up. I was fragmented in a way I can explain today, but could not then.
Then, I understand. So what happened at 42?
42, gosh. I was 2 years into radio. I had already won a radio award. I had already been on TV. I had gotten into Psychic Friends Network with Dionne Warwick, was on the infomercial. Then I tried out of 300 people for the nighttime drive on Los Angeles radio. And I was chosen as a psychic because I accepted the fact I became a psychic, even though it's a weird word and people put it down. but it's a gift.
You know, psychics are today called visionaries.
Well, today's a visionary. It's the influencer.
Yes.
There's different words.
Yes.
But back then, not yet.
Psychic.
And remember, it's pre-internet. I got on radio before podcasts. I got on radio before.
Oh, look where we are today, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the original
Radio.
psychic all the way.
It's called terrestrial radio, AM and FM.
Yes, and
Before satellite radio.
Before satellite. Can you believe that? And she's doing a podcast with us. How cool. So when you tell us, do you have a story you would like to tell during your radio days which sort of gave you chills and you still think about it? Because I know you have dozens of stories.
Yes.
Could you share one with us?
Yes. It was always talk for 2 hours. I started on KBIG, then I did my own show, and it went from 1 hour. Then I got recruited to another station that gave me 2 hours, and the phones would light up, and I'd be talk. And people want their love life, or they wanted to talk to a lost loved one, and I'd start channeling. One time, a woman barely spoke English, and she wanted me to bring in her grandmother.
Wow.
And I said, I don't know Spanish. And I tried something different, and I channeled the grandmother, who was deceased several years, but all of the messages came through in English. And the woman started to cry on the air because her father was listening. And I channeled exactly the message that was true, that the father knew of his mother, which was her grandmother. And it's the beauty of confirmation when I know I've touched the heart or the soul, or I give somebody a message, or they come back a few months later, oh my God, it happened, I bought the house he proposed, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the worst on radio, this is heavy. I believe it was 1998 or 1999. There was the screener and the engineer and me, and some guy called in from Chicago, Illinois, and wanted to know about his cousin. So I brought in the cousin. There's this big thump in the studio. And you, as well as I know, everything's timed to the minute. You cannot waste time. There's no dead air.
Absolutely. There's no dead air.
It was this horrible negative experience that we went off the air for 10 minutes to figure out what had happened to the studio. It was cold. It was dark. It was weird. We finally calmed down. We played music, got back on the air, and I said, I don't know, Louis Bob, whatever his name was. I said, who am I bringing in? Who is this person? Oh, it's my cousin Louis. He was part of the mob. Raul, I've never believed in a hell, but if there is a hell, I found it that night. The negative, the heavy, the fear, the impact that we all experienced. That's something I'm very cautious of. I don't want to ever see that again. I did do paranormal work for 22 years. I stopped in 2018. It gets a little dark and heavy, and it took a toll on my body, even though I love helping and giving messages to give comfort, but I have to be comfortable and still live. So the beauty of the radio was reaching masses, just like on internet today.
Absolutely.
You reach masses. The beauty is the confirmation, the thank you. Wow, I touched somebody. Just like with you, you're touching people. That's the gratification.
So I don't want to, talk too much about the experience that happened.
Yeah, it goes on and on. I got 30 years of
I
it.
know. No. With this dark hell experience that you had.
Yeah, it was heavy.
But did you see the spirit? Did you see the
I
figure?
don't always see clairvoyantly, but when I, as a medium, now there's the psychic part, which is clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, the healing, which is my other energy that came through some surgeries later on, and then the mediumship happened after I had 100 tumors removed from my hips and thighs. So I had a lot of incidents that kept propelling me forward where I didn't ask for it. It came to me. But after I started healing from having all the tumors, this warm piece of the right of my head on the side would open up like a little tunnel, and I started communicating, and I would hear voice. I would hear the spirit. With me, I could pick up their problems. So if I had a stomach ache, I found out they had stomach cancer. If I had a headache, they had a brain aneurysm. If I was throwing up, it was something else. Or if I didn't sleep for 2 days, they had sleep apnea. I had to stop because I would pick up their symptoms.
You were picking up their symptoms. You were living their life.
And they came through me, and I'm getting chills. And I would communicate your grandmother, your sister, the dog, whatever. That's part of my gift that I choose to stay away from.
It must have taken such a significant toll on you, Dr. Salvin.
It did for many years.
What kept you going?
The gratification and helping the next person in pain, because when we lose somebody, they need the closure, the comfort, the communication to know we're not alone and that there is a spiritual entity that gives us in our living physical being. I tapped into that fourth dimension. It's true. I've got, I don't know how many testimonials I've written, authorized testimonies coming out in a book to prove this stuff is real, because there's so many skeptics. And the criticism, or some people think it's just neurological. Oh, you just hit your head. No, there's something scientifically. I know the neurological in the brain. I'm not a brain scientist, but I know enough. Like, this was not me prior to this. So each accident took me to a higher level. The white light got me connected to the other side when they said, "You can come with us now or stay and do," and then whatever. But I finally, at one point, that was 84, it was 91, I had my surgery. I don't mind admitting I had an emergency hysterectomy. I said, I want to be a statistic. Doctor said, well, you can have a choice of statistics, above ground or below ground. I think, okay, because I was dying. I was hemorrhaging. But after the surgery, I became a healer.
Wow.
And my first client is the most important that I've always remembered. She had 26 personalities, MPD. I put her back together in one. Her mother flew in from out of state, who worked in a psych ward, and thanked me. I have it on a 8-track tape.
A 26 multiple personality
Yes, and I put it back. I found the cassette tape.
You put her together like a puzzle.
Yes. The doctors, the shrinks, the hospitals could never do it.
They could never understand.
It's spiritual. And this is where we get back to spiritual health.
Right.
Most doctors, PhDs, MDs, you can talk to the whole world. This woman said, why don't you go to a psychiatrist? Why don't you go to the mental health hospitals? And this is 1992 or 1. I said they'd never understand. I didn't even understand, but I knew that I could say these words because I had this gift, but what do I do with it?
Right.
Even today, they're not going to understand.
Do you believe in God, Dr.
Absolutely. You know, I was on a tour yesterday with a private tour to go on a camel ride. And he was born in Pakistan, I think, but he lives here. I forget the whole story. Mm-hmm. But he asked me, because we're talking about spirituality and prayer, he goes, do you pray? I said, I pray every day. And we talked about the custom of the Muslim prayers and on the knees and all this. And do you go to temple? No, I don't go to temple. I said, I don't need to be in a place anymore. God's within. God's everywhere. I can sit in a chair at lunch and just say, okay, God, I need this. And my prayer, whether it's thankful to get me someplace safe or get me on the plane, God goes to Dubai, right? Because I have anxiety, but I'll be okay. Something led me here. Or if I'm, what we say in Yiddish, spilkasi, anxious, I can't sleep at night, my mom's gone. So my ritual of prayer, it's not always, oh, I pray for this and my dad, this and my job, that. It's simple. Just say, thank you, Mom. Good night, Mom. Good night, God. I'm out. It's just acknowledging the source.
Is there a heaven and hell?
I think we're already in hell. I think earth is the hell. And if there is a heaven, I love these questions because on the radio I would talk about this. If heaven were so far away, eons, light years away, how can I connect with the dead? How do I communicate with spirit?
Exactly.
It's just a fine line of dimension that we as with the naked eye can't see. I was showing you pictures of when I went to Alaska to see the lights.
Yes.
You cannot see the lights with the naked eye, but you can capture with the camera. Same thing. I have a connection. I break through this barrier that we do not see. My grandmother, my mom may be here and you're like, ha. And they're probably, my mom's, no, she doesn't smoke anymore, but she may be here. But it's going through a dimension we do not see. The beauty of this generation.
Right.
Now, remember, December 19th, 2024 was the end of the age of Pluto and Capricorn since 2008. So for the next 22 years 20 years to 2044, we're in the age of Aquarius. We're all elevating. We're all growing. We're all accelerating. We're all going to become lighter, more in tune, more awake, and we're going to be more intuitive and more conscious. It's a whole movement on the planet, whether you like it or not. It's happening.
Okay.
For every sign, you're a Virgo, I'm a Capricorn, you might be a Gemini, this one's a Pisces, whatever. But you can look it up and figure out where you are as to how the planet is shifting. This is the age of Aquarius since December 19th, 2024. After 16 years in a position, we're all moving faster, but there's going to be a sense of unity and more peace if the people are open. There's a lot of people who are still very, what I call left brain, don't want the awareness.
Right.
You're on a higher frequency, which is why you can do what you do, Raul, to facilitate bringing the world together. I have a frequency where they come to me like, like a magnet. But you and I both know there's certain people that think we're just so wonderful, but they all want a piece. So I say it's like being a scarecrow, and they take the straw. And after a while, I just got to go to sleep, take a shower, leave me alone. but I said, no. And you're like, after a while, you got boundaries. It's not that you're mean. You're human. But you have light. Our job is to bring more light. Keep the light going on. I'm like a flashlight on the path. Oh, there's a rock. Go around that one. That's my job, is to be the little flashlight. But a lot of people don't want to hear it, or they don't want the truth. And then they'll come to me and I'll say, no, this is not the right guy. There's actually a woman here in Dubai who's been a client of mine for a few years. And I've been working with her. She wanted to have coffee, and then she got real cold when I got here, and I just blocked her today. I said, you take care. She's engaged to somebody, and it's not going to work, but she's forcing herself with the family and the him and the differences. And I don't want to get involved anymore, and I don't want to deal with that. Let her figure it out. I told her what I felt. I said, yes, you're going to marry him. No, you're not going to marry him. And she thought they were getting married in October. It's now December. It didn't happen. So I knew I was seeing properly, but that's her journey.
Right.
A lot of people argue with the answer. I am in the top 90s of accuracy when it comes to knowing things.
Wow. You have an accuracy rate of over 90%.
Over 90%. I don't want to say.
Have you seen a ghost, Dr.
Oh,
Salvin?
yes. I've had apparitions. I've seen ghosts.
Tell us an incident.
There's a rock star who died in the 90s, who I never met personally, but started channeling through me when he died. I knew his brother. We all went to the same high school. Very famous band. I don't mind talking about it because I've got it written from the band Toto. Jeff Picaro was the drummer. Jeff had come to me after he died in 1992 and started giving me messages, and I thought I was going nuts. It was the first real contact from the other side that worked with me. And anytime I hear certain songs on the radio, it's like, oh, hi, Jeff, you're there. Okay, the little confirmation. But when I lived in a place called Beverly Glen in Los Angeles, this is when it started with him, I don't know, I guess about 5 years after he passed away, on the mantle of the fireplace, I had a vision that he was sitting there with a bandana, and I thought, am I seeing this? No, it was an apparition. And then when I moved into another apartment, he was standing at the wall with his arms crossed, like, hey, and he would always call me little sister. So I always knew the term would come through. It's him. So he's like a guide. He's a spiritual entity. And I would see it. As far as seeing like a white ghost, no. Have I seen a woman in a white gown? No. But have I seen entities?
It's like a figure. It's like a figure.
But there's also something called shadow people. And this can scare people because it scared me. You see the feet, or you see something that looks like a goon or a little gargoyle.
Oh man, I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah, because I'm telling you the truth. You're learning something. But there's nothing here. But once in a while, there's some really weird things that the trained person may see, and it comes out of the corner of your eye rather than visually in front.
Or like from the side.
Yeah, you might see it.
Yeah.
But that's called shadow people. Sometimes there's danger. Sometimes it gets cold. Sometimes the temperature changes. But I know I'm so protected with light that even when I get freaked out, there's people for me to call that'll remove it or clear the energy. Like I clear energy for people on the phone. You find your little network to help you. But ghosts are real. There's good ghosts, there's bad ghosts. Sometimes you hear thumping in the ceiling.
Yeah.
Or the
or knock
wall
on
cracks.
The door. Yeah.
And you think, what was that? Oh, it's just the settling of the building. That's what they say. No, it's a ghost going through the wall. It's a spirit. And when you hear that crack in the wall,
and you have good spirits and bad spirits.
Yes.
And they don't like go to their whatever dimension.
A lot. That's a good question. A lot of ghosts or spirits get caught in the physical realm and they don't ascend.
Why?
Because they're not ready, or it depends how they died and they weren't complete.
So they need closure?
They want closure, or you're in their home. It's their property. How dare you take over? And it might have been burial ground from the 1700s of a war.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and that's my property, my reservation. You don't know, like here, Dubai. Let's use that as an example. I learned yesterday out in the desert. I went in the truck and had the sandstorm and rode the camel. But he also explained this is one part of the desert that will not be developed. So I thought Dubai was all desert, and over the years they created a city.
Correct.
Okay, but we don't know what happened 1,000 years ago.
Absolutely.
So your apartment building can be on burial ground. This building that we're in for the studio could be from 1,000, 1,500. We don't know.
It could be. Yeah.
So if the ghost comes, it could be they got trapped. Now, when somebody dies, long illness, chronic illness. But what about in war? They're shot to death. I mean, we just had somebody in the States, the head of the largest insurance company in the world, was shot
dead. Yes.
Why
Yes.
was he shot? Okay.
And from the back. The guy came from the back.
Yes,
I know,
and they're
yeah.
still trying to go after him. But my question is, okay, first he leaves a widow. He leaves the children. He leaves this immaculate, huge company.
Right.
Now, was somebody upset their benefits weren't covered? Was it personal? We don't know why yet. But if I look at the man, I'm sorry, I forget his name right offhand. But when you're killed and you're not prepared to die, the soul goes to a different place of unsettlement, of confusion. Where am I? What happened? But my family, I didn't leave a will. Oh, my wife, what about the kids? There's confusion.
So they feel incomplete.
They're incomplete, but most of them will go to the light. And when people ask, can I talk to my dog, my grandmother, my first question is, has it been 30 to 45 days? No, it's just last week. No, I will not touch a soul until they settle. They need time to settle. They're in combat. They're killed. It's shocking versus a long-term disease like kidney disease, and you're on dialysis.
Where they're prepared.
Even when you're preparing, you're not prepared.
Obviously. Yeah, you're
You
right.
know,
Yeah,
but then there's
right.
those with hospice that
Right.
walk you over, and
Right.
then there's some that have an easy transition.
Correct.
Or there's people in bed that need to be given permission to go.
Right.
I'm worried about you. Don't be worried about my mom. I'm okay. I saw my mom on a Wednesday. She died on a Thursday. Did I wish I'd said more? Do I wish I'd hugged her? You bet I do. You know, it's hard.
It is.
That's just the spiritual side. That's the other side. But we're in the here and now. So the physical is what's important. And if I give a prediction, well, why are you saying that? I said, it's going to happen in the next 6 months to a year. No, you're crazy. I said, if you don't want the truth, don't ask the psychic. Don't come to me if you're going to argue with me. Then I'll get the letters. Just like in your business. Oh, you're this, you're a fraud, you're just taking money, or, you're not really real. And all of a sudden I'm so sorry. You were right. Then I'll get a letter. You know what? I owe you an apology. You told me 2 years ago, blah, blah, blah would happen. It's happened. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. It's like, so the joke is, don't want to know, don't ask a psychic. But there's so many charlatans out there. Digital media has actually ruined the opportunity for the real helping veterans. I'll call myself a veteran after all these years, right?
Absolutely.
40 years. Everybody's on TikTok. Everybody's throwing cards. Everybody's a psychic. Everybody's a medium. Everybody's got a show. Everybody's a this and that. There aren't that many true, gifted, spiritual gurus, messengers, whatever. And we're few and far between. But when you meet another person on the journey that gets that level, it's different and it's unique. And you can go to the bank and you don't connect, but you do your job, get out. I know, I'll cut it short. But a lot of people are thirsty. They want to grow spiritually because it's not religion. But there's something gnawing inside. There's more. It's not just the award. It's not just $500,000 a year. It's not just the Bentley or the Mercedes.
Right.
There's a hole inside. There's an ache for
They feel
more.
empty.
And that's where spirit comes in.
Right.
And that's my job, to help them understand how to integrate. That you can bring the mind, body, spirit together. Yes, you can have all the toys and work hard and get this and the family, or you're with the wrong spouse or the wrong partner and you're disgruntled and you don't know why it's not working because you're with the wrong soulmate. There's real truth to past lives, this life. I mean, we can go on forever. But my job is to help them get on the best path.
Understood.
And be as happy and content with balance, peace, harmony, and a faith, which is getting back to your original question, and then we'll close. How did this happen? If there was no one to really guide me, because I went to doctor, therapist, and one day I was walking in LA, and I just said, what the hell do you want me to do? Because I couldn't go back to public health.
Correct.
I was already fragmented. I tried entertainment, went back to music, did the comedy. It's like, what? Nothing felt right. Didn't know what to do. I surrendered to God, whatever my God is or was and still is. I don't label a church and a temple anymore.
Right.
My own rabbi said, Linda, you should have been a rabbi with your knowledge. I said, I don't want to be a rabbi. Because to me, it was limiting. It just is. Butterflies.
You're universal.
It's universal. It's butterflies.
Absolutely.
You know, can I close with the poem?
No. We have questions.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was trying to...
No, let's hold on to the poem.
Because it's about God.
No. So I will close with the poem for sure.
But it's the wisdom and the rabbi and teaching people
I understand that.
faith.
So briefly, if you can tell me, since you're so experienced with this, you've treated, you've helped, you've guided thousands of people globally, HNIs, UHNIs, super famous people,
I've
super
had the
rich people,
celebrities, yeah.
the celebrities. You've done all of this.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when someone dies? Like the moment the person dies and stops breathing. You told me about the life flashes before you die. But when someone dies, what happens to the body? What happens to the soul?
The body continues for a little bit. The heart may still beat.
Okay.
But
has the soul left?
The soul leaves on the last breath.
Okay.
And the soul enters on the first breath. Now, I had somebody at the Fortuna meeting that disagreed with me because of her experience with soul and what she thinks happened with her. And we all have different opinions, which is fine.
Obviously.
But
yeah.
my experience and the way I've worked and what I've learned in body, out of body, near death, all this stuff that this is not what I learned at Michigan. This is not what they taught me at school. This is
no,
not.
when you're doing epidemiology, obviously.
This is not statistical
Right.
analysis on
Right.
cancer, okay?
Right.
But when that baby is born, I believe the soul enters and we choose our parents in this lifetime to learn lessons. I've met your mother at the event. You guys are you look like your mother. He's got this gorgeous face, folks, because he looks like his beautiful mom. There's so much.
Thank you, Dr. Salvin.
But and she's lovely.
Thank you.
And you guys are on a higher level. Otherwise, I couldn't even hang out for 5 minutes to say hi, nice to meet you, and I move on if I don't feel it, right?
Right.
Same with you. When we are born and they make that baby cry,
Yeah.
that's the breath of the soul coming alive.
Right.
When we're dying, I watched my aunt die. I left 2 hours before she actually died, but she started saying she saw orange lights. She could see my grandmother because our ancestors are there to welcome us. There is a committee. There is a welcoming committee. When children, 2 months old, die or 5 years old, they become the gatekeepers for the other children that don't make it because of cancer or accidents.
To guide them. They become,
Yep. Their hand is there. Your dog, your cat, your fish, your bird, they're all there. My mom, my grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, the relatives, they're there. But we can also have 8 or 9 generations of relatives that might have been our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparent who had a sister whose cousin is now your guardian angel because they choose us in life. Let's go help Raul. Let's go help Dr. Linda. Jeff chose me in 1992, which is why I kept talking because I became a medium. Yes, but they choose us. So it's a bigger platform than what meets the eye, just like spirit's here, but we don't see it.
Got it.
Sometimes when you get the chills, you're feeling it because they're telling you you're right, you're on target.
Right.
You get the little messages. The frequency, the coincidences, the synchronicity. How does it all work? Dr. Carl Jung was one of the first to teach in the early 1900s, who was a student of Freud. And he defined the synchronicity with the dolphins jumping out of the water.
Right.
I think he was on a train in India.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I read about that. Yes.
And all of a sudden he started to watch what causes all of this, and he put it together.
Right.
And I'm a student of that.
I understand.
And people are now students of me. It's all the same.
It is.
It's just now we got TV and radio and internet to teach more than sitting on a train in a book.
Right.
It's the evolution. Or if you really want to get weird, are we really from a different planet? Was all this here before? Are we just recreating? How come the pyramids exist the way they do? How did this, Are we just reprogramming? You got Stephen King, who's always wrote the most amazing science fiction. Or did he live it? Or was it written before?
Because the way he wrote it, it was as if he lived it, which takes me to my follow-up question.
Is it reincarnation?
Is it reincarnation?
Was it a Martian?
Or is there a multiverse?
There's another verse. Are we in a megaverse? Or how many lives are we really living?
Oh, this could go on and on.
Exactly.
Okay.
So how did you get published this time? But maybe it was written 17
Yeah.
100 years ago.
Like Simpsons, you know, they
How come
predicted
they
so many things.
What comes first?
Yeah.
Or is it part of the Illuminati? Is it part of the One World
Exactly,
Order?
yeah.
I mean,
We could go on and on. Okay, moving on.
that's not epidemiology, sir.
So I've got 3 important questions around, you know, what you're doing, and
Yeah.
then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
You have a book coming out next
do.
year. Can you briefly tell us about the
Yes.
motivation and what can we expect with the book?
I keep changing the name. Right now it's White Butterfly because end with the
I
poem.
love it.
I'll end with the poem. But what happened in 1981 with the change of my life with the plane crash, then the fire truck, then the totaling the car, I wanted to write a book about these experiences. Fast forward 40 years, every time I think I'm done with the book or I've got the testimonies, some of the people have even died that wrote me testimony. I keep changing. So there's another chapter because I think, no, I need to add this. I think it's time for this.
You got too many testimonies.
So I have a lot of testimonials and
Right.
photographs.
Right.
One in particular that we're working on. There was a woman whose son committed suicide, hung himself. She called in on the air one night, and all she said was, "Why did he die?" I said, "He hung himself." She goes, "Yes." I said, "Call me off the air." She called me off the air. I said, "I see overalls, a basketball, and Dumbo the flying elephant." I had these images. He was talking to me. She didn't know what I was talking about. 3 weeks later, she calls in on the air. She goes, "I found it." I said, "You found what?" There was a photograph of her son's 2nd or 3rd birthday party. There was a Dumbo stuffed animal. There was a basketball, and he was wearing overalls. She sent me the photograph with the story of me channeling her son who committed suicide because his friend started dating his girlfriend.
Oh my goodness.
I got it all. I've channeled spaghetti sauce recipes. I never cooked it, but I've got it.
Wow.
There was a doctor, and this woman in Pasadena called. "I would like to talk to my husband." I said, "I can't get anything. I just see him out a window chewing gum." She goes, "That's my husband." He never talked. He did his job and never talked. Stuff like that would happen.
Wow.
All this is coming into
Wow.
the book. I am putting certain stories together
Right.
to prove this was real.
The spiritual science, basically.
I did it, and I want people to know
Right.
this can exist.
Awesome. Cool.
However, I get into addiction, some of my own struggles. I get into the psychological spiritual awakening and being out of sorts for 12 years,
You've seen the dark side.
seeing the dark side, leading into radio, TV, getting published in other people's books because I channeled someone's son after he died, and it's been, it's the evolution. So I said before I left, I said, "I finally got the last chapter." She goes, "What?" I said, "My trip to Dubai."
Awesome.
This is the last
That
chapter
is so
for
cool.
this book, which should be ready by next spring.
Well, we're hopeful that we get to see the
Yes.
book next year when we see you again, Dr. Salvin. Last question. You've helped so many people. You're one of the most wholehearted, selfless people I know, one of the most humble people I know, somebody who's so approachable. So if anyone had to reach out to you to get a consult, what's the easiest way to reach out to you?
LindaSalvin.com, where you can hear my radio station runs 24 hours a day, my podcast. You can book a reading, healing, or channeling session. And I just want to plug that there is an alternative product line I created called Wicks of Wisdom.
I was just going to ask about that. Yeah. Tell us more about
Wicks
that.
of Wisdom. I was trained in candle magic. There was a guy I was dating many years ago, and I went to a pagan place in LA and Hollywood. Everybody goes there to try to get him to open up. It didn't work. Then I knew this woman who's now deceased, and she had a candle line. I tried that. Nothing happened. One of my clients told me a guy she knew downtown who was a Santeria priest. Be careful. He's really good looking. He's scary. So I go downtown. And I'm looking for this scary-looking guy. It's like, he's just another guy. Yeah, he's nice-looking. He's a Scorpio. He's intense. His name is Michael. He trained me in candle magic. And he gave me a set of candles to work on my guy at the time, and it worked. I called him. I said, "This works." He's talking. He said, "Of course it works." He says, "Come back down here." So I went back down to his store. He goes, "I'm going to teach you." I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because you're going to buy from me, and you're going to help lots of people on the radio." And that was in 1999. We're now 2024. So 25 years. I have been doing Wicks of Wisdom, which is like a prescription for your soul. I've got 18 different formulas. Think of baking a banana bread, chocolate chip cookies, and a pumpkin pie. You got 3 different recipes, 3 different foods, different desserts, different results. Same in candle magic. One's for money, one's for opportunity, one's for education. One might be for soulmates, love. I've healed people, healing. I have health and wellness. One girl needed surgery. I got the uterus has stopped bleeding. She didn't need her surgery. I've got testimonies that are awe-inspiring that the medical world would go like, what? But I have helped people. I have legal candles. There's 2 girls on my YouTube channel, 2 different cases. Both of them this past year testified because of the candle work. They didn't go to jail for 20 years. Both were up for 20-year sentences. They were both dropped. All their attorneys were shocked. The government, it's all recorded. It's all there. So if people have problems, which we all do, I don't care if you're a sheik, if you're president of the United States, you're still human.
Absolutely.
And yes, I've even helped. There was one woman years ago, you asked about the radio, there was a woman who lived in her car, used to listen to me, had 3 kids, and I helped her with the candles. She'd burn them outside the car at night and put them out, but she got a job. She got out of the car. She got an apartment with her 3 kids.
Wow.
And she worked her way up. She kept in touch. I've lost touch now.
She changed her life.
She changed her life, got a job, and moved up into the corporate world from being homeless. So I have a tagline from the homeless to the White House. I mean, I've worked with people.
Wow, Dr. Salvin.
So if they have a problem, the candles accelerate the spiritual influence to help with the money or the love or getting married or divorced or promoted or moving or jail or whatever.
Right.
I have a technique. So I created a brand, which is all under Dr. Linda Salvin. And this is the last message for people who came from nowhere or trauma. And you got to figure it out. Don't even try to figure out. Just show up like, what do you want me to do? And the guidance will start if you get out of the way. And I just took one step in front of another. I tripped, I fell, I was on top, I was on the bottom, I got embezzled, whatever. But I keep showing up. I don't give up because I know there's something guiding me. I walked from 2 record deals, a comedy deal, could have done the Hollywood thing. Sometimes I wish. But this is the passion. And I was speaking to your singer the other night about the same thing. There's a drive.
It's your calling. It motivates you. It
and
drives
that's
you.
like yours. You've got, when you find that passion, people go, well, what's my life? I said, well, what's your passion? I don't know. What would you like as a child?
That is your purpose.
I get to
Dr. Salvin.
unwrap. It's like an artichoke.
Absolutely.
With the little points on the leaves, you peel and you get to the heart.
That's your purpose. That's your calling. Thank you. That's so cool.
So candles, wicksofwisdom.net, lindasalvin.com. You can find me on Instagram at Psychic Linda PhD, Facebook Linda Salvin, YouTube Dr. Linda Salvin. I'm out there.
Awesome. Perfect. Do you want to tell us your poem real quick?
Yes. I'm going to paraphrase it, but this is how I see God. There's and it's in my infomercial. It's on YouTube. A child's asking about God. God, are you real? Everybody wants to know, what is this thing? Regardless of religion. So the child whispers, God, speak to me. And a meadowlark sang, but the child did not hear. So the child says, God, speak to me. And the thunder rolls across the sky, but the child does not listen. So the child said, God, speak to me. And a star shines brightly, but the child does not see. So the child says, show me a miracle. And a child is born, but the child does not know. So the child gets frustrated. Touch me, God, show me you're real. Whereupon God reaches down and touches the child, but the child brushed the butterfly away and walked away unknowingly. Sanskrit, 1200.
Wow. That is amazing. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to say anything else. Ladies and gentlemen, Linda Salvin, thank you so much, Dr. Salvin, for coming in today. What an absolute pleasure.
You have touched
this
me.
has been. What an absolute pleasure.